What drives a superstar to push his body beyond medical recommendations when everything he's worked for hangs in the balance? Jayson Tatum's relentless pursuit of a swift return to the Boston Celtics lineup isn't just about basketball. It's about a player who refuses to watch his championship window slam shut, while he sits helplessly on the sidelines, consumed by the kind of competitive fire that separates legends from mere all-stars. The desperation in Tatum's voice when he declares, "I'm pushing to get back on the court as quickly as possible," tells the entire story of where the Celtics find themselves right now. This isn't the casual optimism of a player dealing with a minor setback. This is the urgent plea of a franchise cornerstone who recognizes that championship opportunities don't wait for anyone, especially in a league where health and timing must align perfectly for magic to happen. When Tatum talks about targeting a swift comeback, he's not just discussing medical timelines or rehabilitation protocols. He's revealing the psychological weight that comes with being the face of a franchise that has tasted greatness and now finds itself staring into the abyss of another potentially wasted season. The Celtics' struggles without their star have exposed just how thin the line is between championship contention and playoff disappointment. The brutal reality facing Boston is that playoff basketball operates on an entirely different timeline than regular season recovery schedules. Every game carries exponential importance, and every day Tatum spends in street clothes is another day closer to their championship dreams evaporating into another year of what-if scenarios that haunt franchises for decades. Tatum's urgency reflects a mature understanding of NBA championship windows that many young superstars never grasp until it's too late. At just 26 years old, he's already experienced the bitter taste of finals defeat and the crushing disappointment of early playoff exits. This experience has taught him that championship opportunities are precious and fleeting, not guaranteed annual occurrences that can be postponed for optimal health conditions. The Celtics' struggles during Tatum's absence have been both predictable and painful to witness. Without their primary offensive catalyst and defensive anchor, Boston has resembled a luxury car operating on 3 cylinders, technically functional but nowhere near peak performance. The team's inability to find consistent rhythm speaks to how thoroughly Tatum's presence permeates every aspect of their identity. His scoring prowess, which has become the foundation of Boston's offensive system, cannot be easily replicated or redistributed among role players. When a player regularly delivers 30-point performances while creating opportunities for teammates, his absence creates a void that affects not just point totals, but entire game plans and strategic approaches that opponents use against the Celtics. More importantly, Tatum's leadership presence in crucial moments has been sorely missed. Playoff basketball demands players who can elevate their performance when the stakes reach their highest levels, and Tatum has consistently demonstrated this capability throughout his career. His absence forces teammates into uncomfortable roles and responsibilities they may not be equipped to handle at the championship level. The defensive side of his impact cannot be overlooked either. Tatum's versatility allows Boston to switch defensive assignments and match up against various opponent configurations. Without this flexibility, the Celtics become more predictable and easier to exploit strategically, particularly against well-coached playoff teams that spend extensive time studying defensive weaknesses. What makes Tatum's situation particularly compelling is the inevitable tension between medical prudence and competitive urgency. Medical professionals operate on conservative timelines designed to prevent re-injury and ensure long-term health, while competitive athletes operate on emotional timelines driven by championship aspirations and the fear of missed opportunities. Tatum's push for an accelerated return represents the classic dilemma facing every superstar dealing with injury during crucial moments. The safest medical approach would involve patient rehabilitation and careful monitoring, but playoff basketball doesn't accommodate such luxury. Every day of additional rest could mean the difference between championship contention and early vacation planning. The pressure he's placing on himself also reflects the weight of organizational expectations and fan hopes that have been building for years. The Celtics have constructed their entire roster and strategic approach around maximizing Tatum's prime years, And watching those investments potentially waste away due to injury timing creates urgency that transcends normal medical considerations. His willingness to potentially risk long-term health for immediate championship pursuit demonstrates the kind of competitive mentality that separates good players from franchise legends. This isn't reckless abandon. It's calculated risk-taking based on the understanding that championship windows are finite and unpredictable. From Boston's organizational perspective, Tatum's return timeline carries implications that extend far beyond this season's playoff success. The Celtics have invested enormous resources in building a championship-caliber roster around Tatum's peak years, and watching that investment potentially diminish due to injury timing would represent a catastrophic organizational failure. The financial and competitive commitments made to surrounding Tatum with championship-level talent create additional pressure for his swift return. When organizations construct rosters specifically designed to maximize narrow championship windows, every missed opportunity carries exponential costs that affect future roster construction and competitive positioning. The psychological impact on teammates also cannot be understated. Role players and veterans who joined Boston specifically for championship opportunities need to see their franchise player demonstrating the same level of commitment to winning that they've embraced. Tatum's urgency to return sends a powerful message about organizational priorities and competitive culture. Additionally, the Celtics' championship window may be more narrow than many realize. Key players are aging, contracts are expanding, and salary cap constraints will eventually force difficult roster decisions. Tatum understands that this particular combination of talent and timing may not be easily replicated in future seasons. What makes Tatum's situation uniquely pressurized is the weight of championship expectations that have followed him throughout his career. Since his rookie season, he's been identified as a future championship leader, and every playoff disappointment has added layers of pressure and scrutiny that most young players never experience. The burden of franchise expectations creates a psychological environment where taking conservative approaches to injury recovery can feel like competitive failure. Tatum isn't just dealing with his own competitive desires. He's carrying the hopes and dreams of an entire fan base that has waited over a decade for another championship celebration. The media scrutiny surrounding his recovery timeline adds another dimension of pressure that affects decision-making processes. Every public statement about his condition becomes analyzed and interpreted as evidence of either competitive fire or insufficient urgency, creating a narrative environment that incentivizes aggressive return timelines regardless of medical recommendations. His previous playoff performances, particularly in clutch moments, have established expectations that only he can fulfill. When other players attempt to fill his role, the inevitable comparisons highlight just how irreplaceable his specific skill set has become within Boston's championship pursuit. Perhaps what drives Tatum's urgency most powerfully is the recognition that careers are defined by moments exactly like this one. Championship legends are remembered not just for their talent, but for their willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for team success when everything hangs in the balance. The history of NBA championships is filled with stories of injured superstars who push through pain and medical uncertainty to deliver championship moments that define their legacies forever. Tatum understands that his career narrative could be fundamentally altered by how he responds to this particular challenge. The alternative, watching his team struggle in the playoffs while he recovers safely, represents the kind of regret that haunts competitive athletes for the rest of their careers. Championship opportunities are rare enough that letting one slip away due to conservative medical approaches often becomes a source of lifelong disappointment. His urgency also reflects an understanding that individual accolades and statistics mean nothing without championship success. All-star selections and scoring titles provide career satisfaction, but championship rings provide the kind of legacy validation that transcends statistical achievements and defines how players are remembered by history. Tatum's push for a swift return ultimately represents the kind of character test that reveals the true nature of championship-caliber players. the willingness to risk personal comfort and long-term health for immediate team success separates players who talk about winning from those who actually deliver championships when opportunities arise. The Boston Celtics championship hopes now rest entirely on Tatum's ability to balance competitive urgency with medical reality, finding a way to return quickly enough to impact their playoff trajectory while avoiding the kind of re-injury that could derail everything they've built. It's a high-wire act that requires both physical courage and strategic thinking. The stakes couldn't be higher for a player and organization that have invested everything in this particular championship window. Tatum's swift return could represent the turning point that transforms potential disappointment into championship celebration, while any delay could mean watching another season of championship dreams fade into frustrating memories. The basketball world is watching to see whether Tatum's competitive fire can overcome medical caution and deliver the kind of heroic return that championship legends are made of. Will his burning desire to return prove to be the catalyst for Boston's championship resurgence? Or will the pressure of accelerated timelines create more problems than solutions? Share your thoughts on whether Tatum should prioritize long-term health or immediate championship pursuit. And hit that like button if you're as invested in seeing how this high-stakes recovery unfolds as we are.